Hi, it's Barry Neal here, and in this next installment of the Anxiety Buster videos, I want to look at panic attacks. Now, panic attacks are probably one of the worst things that you can ever experience. They can be absolutely awful. They can be absolutely terrifying. If you ever had one, you don't need me to tell you how bad they can be, because it feels like you're going to die. Your heart rate increases, you get nausea, you get sickness, you get dizziness. And even the strongest of us can end up on the floor in a quivering wreck thinking we're going to die. And the first time it happens, we might even end up in accident and emergency, having all sorts of tests on us because we think we're having a heart attack. But the reality is, all that's happening is that we're having an anxiety attack or a panic attack. So, and what you can do then is if you don't try to stop it, then it quickly subsides. But most people don't do that. Most people try to fight it. They either run away from wherever they are, they may try breathing exercises, they may try to do all sorts of things to try and calm themselves down. And what happens is the more you try to do that, the worse it actually gets. And it can then take hours and hours for you to come back out of this. And so the more you try to fight it, the worse it gets. And then if you go to your doctor about it, quite often what happens is that you'll get labelled as having a panic disorder. Then, typically, is that a short while after that, you'll probably have another one. And because they seem to come out of nowhere, what then happens for most people is that they then develop a fear of having a panic attack or a fear of fears. And so then everything becomes anxious. Anxiety is there all the time. So they're anxious all the time, and because you don't know where they're going to come from, you could be fine for a couple of weeks or even a couple of months, and then suddenly, bang, you have another panic attack, and then you're back to square one. And so people get into this cycle of having them, and they have a fear about them. And then what happens is they limit themselves. They stop going places, they stop doing things because they think, well, you know, the last time I went to the supermarket I had a panic attack, therefore I'm not going to the supermarket. Or the last time I went on a girls' night out, I had a panic attack and everyone was looking at me, I'm not going to do that anymore. And so it's one of these things that can really limit our lives, but paradoxically, it's one of the easiest things to treat when you treat it properly. So let's look. What really happens when you have a panic attack? Because the downside is for a lot of people, if you've had a panic attack and you go into your doctors, or you did go to accident emergency, they'll tell you, well, you weren't dying, it wasn't your heart, it was just all in your head. And you come back from that feeling pretty bad because you know something happened and you felt it in your body. It was physical. And the reality is, it's not just all in your head, it is a physical thing. So let's have a look at what happens. You'll have to excuse my artwork. I never pass my art exams. So here's a rough idea of the body. We've got the brain up here, and in the brain here, we've got this little area here called the amygdala. And the amygdala is a very ancient part of the brain, and it's like the lookout. It's the part of the mind that looks out for danger. And it looks out for danger without thinking about things. It doesn't analyse, or what if this happens, or what if that, is it okay, this, is that okay? No, it just looks out for danger. And when it sees danger, it immediately sends a signal down to your adrenal glands, which are seated down here in your tummy on top of your kidneys. Okay, and what then happens is the adrenal glands release huge amounts of adrenaline into your system, and you get this adrenaline rush. An adrenaline rush, it's kind of like rocket fuel. It feels like everything is going overtime. So your heart rate increases, you get nausea and dizziness, because it's part of the fight or flight system. We are prehistorically designed, and this ancient part of the brain, which has sent this signal down to the adrenal glands, which releases the adrenaline, is really for you to start the fight or flight process. You either got to run or you've got to fight. And so this is what happens. It dumps this huge amount of adrenaline into your system, and then you feel this terrible fear. But the reality is, you weren't really under threat, but because this part of the mind does that, it sends this signal. Now, the interesting thing is if you try to stop it, then what happens is the adrenal gland goes, sorry, the amygdala goes, oh, there must be something really to fear because you're trying to stop this. And what happens is it keeps doing this cycle. It keeps sending a signal down to the adrenaline, to the adrenal glands, which releases more adrenaline, and it keeps going and going and going. But the reality is, if you were to do nothing, then what would happen is you break that cycle. So let's have a look. So what then happens is the amygdala senses danger, and it sends this signal to the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands release adrenaline into your system, and this is when your heart rate starts to beat faster and you start feeling nauseous and you feel awful. Then you get these physical symptoms and the heart's racing, you get fear, your breathing changes, your stomach churning, etc. Now, at this point, you've got two choices. You either do something, and then what happens is if you do something, if you try to stop it, if you try to fight it, if you try to run, what you're doing is you're reinforcing the signal to the amygdala that there's something going on. So let me use this as an example. Imagine this is your amygdala, okay? And under normal circumstances, your amygdala is nice and calm and relaxed and everything's fine. Then for whatever reason, the amygdala senses danger, and suddenly happens is this, and it sends this signal down to the adrenal glands, and adrenaline is dumped into your system. Now, if you do nothing, if the danger passes, what happens is the amygdala goes back down to its normal state, and you're absolutely fine. But what happens is if you start having a panic attack, the amygdala fires up like this, sends the signal down to your adrenal glands, dumps a load of adrenaline in. If you then start to run, the amygdala is then going to go, whoa, it's something else to fear. You're running, why are you running? If you start doing breathing exercises to try and solve the panic, then the amygdala goes again. And what happens is every time it goes up, if you do anything to try and stop it, all you're doing is keeping it open. And so the key then is to do nothing, because what will happen is once it's dumped that adrenaline in the system, it will go down because there's nothing to fear. The amygdala will go, hang on a minute, well, there's nothing here, nothing to fear really, and it goes about its normal business. So if you do something, what you're doing is increasing the fear cycle. And what happens is you go through these steps, 1, 2, 3, over and over again. And that can last for hours, because the more you keep doing it and thinking, oh my God, I've had a panic attack, and it starts to go down a little bit, you go, oh my God, I could have died. Oh my God, I've got to do breathing exercise. Now, interestingly enough, if you do breathing exercises, one of the reasons why they don't work, probably the worst thing you can do is if you're having a panic attack is doing deep breathing exercises. Now, I know that sounds counterintuitive to what you've probably been told, but modern research has shown without a shadow of a doubt that if you do deep breathing exercises, what can happen is it can imbalance the blood gases in your body. You get too much oxygen in your system, not enough carbon dioxide in your system, and that in and of itself causes the symptoms of a panic attack. So don't do deep breathing exercises. I know everyone tries to tell you to do this, but if you check the research out, the research is in, if you do deep breathing exercises, what can happen is, particularly if you're panicking anyway, is you'll start to hyperventilate, and that will cause the panic attacks to last longer. So don't do that. So what you want to do is to allow the amygdala to go back to normal. So what you do is you do nothing. And I know what you're saying. What do you mean do nothing? I'm having a panic attack. I know. So here's what I would tell my clients is what you need to do is when you're like this, when your amygdala are like this, to imagine that you are stuck wherever you are, that you're not allowed to run, you're not allowed to get up, you're not allowed to do deep breathing. So if you're sitting down, you have to stay sitting down. If you're standing, you have to stay standing. And what you have to do is to allow those feelings, allow the adrenaline to wash over you, to literally flood over you. Now, this term is called flooding, and it was originally coined by a woman, a doctor called Dr. Claire Weeks, many, many years ago. And it's a really, really effective way to deal with any type of anxiety and panic disorder. And that's to just let it take its course. Because what will happen is, after about 5 or 10 minutes, the adrenaline starts to drain out through your body and the amygdala goes down. And then what will happen, if you do this every time you have a panic attack, then what will happen is you have the panic attack and then you allow it to wash over you and it goes down. Then the next time you're in a situation where in the past you used to have a panic attack, then you have the panic attack, but then if you do nothing, it washes over you much, much quicker. And after a couple of times of doing this, the amygdala, because it's got a good memory for danger, will suddenly realize, hang on a minute, there is no danger in this situation, and it won't even react at all. So you'll be able to go through those situations where in the past, your amygdala used to go like this, it now won't. So the key is to do nothing. And you need to do this consistently. And if you do this for 3 or 4 times when you have a panic attack, then what will happen is your amygdala will realize there is nothing to fear and it won't react anymore. And when I work with my private clients, this is one of the things that I challenge them to do. So I'll teach them this and I'll then send them out into the situations where in the past they used to feel or have the panic attacks. So for example, if they used to have a panic attack in a crowded space, I would then explain them to all this and then I say, right, what I want you to do is I want you to go out into that crowded space and try to have a panic attack. And of course, the more they tried to have a panic attack, the less it's likely to happen. And if it did, they just allow that feeling to flood over them. 10 minutes, they're back to normal. Let me give you an example. Many years ago, I was out walking in the country and I walked across this field. My own stupidity, didn't read the sign. Next thing I know, I could see a bull in the distance and it wasn't happy that I was in this field. Suddenly, my amygdala has gone like this and dumped a load of adrenaline into my system, and I've run like hell, and I've got out of that field, jumped the gate and got to the other side just as this bull came herring up right in my face. And for a few minutes after that, I can tell you my heart was racing. I was absolutely nausea. I felt terrible. But because I was out of danger, that adrenaline just washed over me. And 10 minutes later, I was then talking to other people and laughing about it because I was out of the danger. And this is what we need to understand is that when you have this panic attack, if you just allow it to take its natural course, just to wash over you, then 5-10 minutes later, you're absolutely fine and you calm right down. If you try to fight it, you're going to be there for hours. So here's the message. If you have a panic attack, it's just a panic attack. It's just anxiety. It's maybe uncomfortable, but it's not dangerous. It may be uncomfortable, but it's not dangerous. So do understand there's no danger there. It's just uncomfortable and it will pass. This part of the brain, the amygdala, its sole job is to protect us. It's not trying to kill you. It's just, its job is to protect you. And so when the body sees danger, it reacts in this way. And it's uncomfortable, but it's not dangerous. And so once you've learned how to do this, start taking yourself back into those places where in the past you used to have those panic attacks and try hard in vain to get them, because you won't be able to get them, because you will have taught your amygdala that this situation is safe. And the more you do that, the more you start to take back control of your life. So there you go. Quick, easy way to take back control of your life and to take back control of panic attacks. I know it sounds simplistic. I know probably you think, hang on a minute, it can't be that simple. I must have to have therapy, or I must have to have my heart checked and things like that. Well, of course, you know, if you are concerned about your heart, go and have it checked. But the reality is, it's almost certainly just a panic attack. And because one of the other things that can often happen with people with this situation is that when they go into the, if they have a panic attack and they go to the A&E and they get all these tests on them, and they say to the person, you know, there's nothing wrong with you, nothing wrong with your heart, you're wasting our time, you're just having a panic attack. What can often happen is that person will come away from that and think, well, that can't be right, there must be something wrong with me. I couldn't have felt that bad if there was nothing wrong with me. And what often happens is that they end up with health anxiety. So the key to all of this, in health anxiety as well, is to just realize it's just a normal function, that the amygdala is just watching out for whatever, it's trying to protect you, and it's seen something or heard something or felt something that it thought was potentially dangerous. It's dumped a load of adrenaline in your system. If you do nothing, it will go. So there you go. It's Barry Neal here from Hypnosis Essex. If I can be of any help for you, if you've got any other types of questions, or if you do feel that you need some form of therapy, by all means get in contact with me on the website or on my Facebook page, or even here on YouTube. But until then, I wish you good health.